Next up, I'd like to welcome to the stage Brandon Macdonald, CEO of Fireweed Metals.
Thanks very much. Glad everyone came out to hear a talk about a zinc and tungsten company at a precious metals conference. I think in years past there would have been such a rush for the exit, people would have been crushed. But we're doing well. I'm pretty happy that where Fireweed's at and where we're headed. This whole theme for this afternoon is Yukon. We have 3 projects, 2 in Yukon territory. Those are our flagship projects, Macmillan Pass, a zinc lead silver project, and Mactung, a tungsten project. We also have a 3rd project I'm going to touch on briefly, the Gaina project in Northwest Territories, also a zinc project. We're extremely thrilled to be working in the Yukon territory. It is where I'm from, where I was born. We, unlike a lot of Yukon, we do benefit from road access, which has been amazing for us, both for the exploration side, keeping costs manageable, and also for eventual development. And really the big news for us has been a massive validation, and it was this time last year, a $20 million investment from the Lundin family, making them a just under 20% shareholder. Another re-up from Teck Resources, keeping them at around 8.5%. Teck, the world's 3rd largest zinc miner, operates the largest zinc mine in the world at Red Dog, knows a thing or two about a zinc project. So a huge validation for us that they invested. It's put us in a pretty good spot. We still have about $20 million cash on hand. Planning a big 2024 after 2023, which is our biggest every year. And for those who have heard the presentation before, I'm going to front load this, maybe with the year in review, and then you can take off rather than me going through the overview again. But 2023, really the last 12 months, huge for us. So $50 million raised in a metals and mining equity market that could be best described as dire. I've heard this is the lowest year for liquidity on the venture exchange for about 20 years. I can believe it. We closed the Mactung acquisition in June or April. That's something that our analysts give us about an average of 150 million in NAV, and we bought that for $15 million. Actually, 10 million of that 15 backdated until we start construction. So in terms of opportunistic acquisitions, pretty great. And we completed our largest ever drill program. I think critically that the most important thing, no lost time injuries, right? And that is the most important part of any project, is people coming home safely. And they managed to come home safely while executing a drill program 3 times larger than we'd ever done before, while simultaneously building a new camp. So kudos to the exploration and operations team for Fireweed, who make me look good. I get to stand up here and take credit. They do the hard work. That 22,000 meters of drilling we did complete. We've only released about 20% of the holes. So one of those holes, which I'll touch on later, was our new all-time best, which was no mean feat to beat the previous all-time best. So over the rest of the year and probably into early January, we would expect about another 4-ish news releases with the remaining 80% of our drill results. And as we've indicated in the last few news releases, we're expecting some pretty good holes in there. And in what has been an awful market, up 40% year on year versus the TSX-V mining index down 15%. So I'll get into the project overviews. Our Mac Pass project, this is the project that we initially built the company around. We wanted to own a zinc project as the Lachine mine and Century mines were shutting down. We chose Mac Pass, and really zinc, I think it's been described as the original critical metal. This is for galvanization. I will not stand up here and tell you it has necessarily the bull demand case for a nickel or copper, but it is massively essential, incredibly underinvested, and something that it's not going away and needs a lot of new big projects. And our Mac Pass project, the year after we bought it, we published a resource about 11 million tons indicated, 39.5 million tons inferred at about 10% zinc equivalent. That was based on only the Tom and Jason deposits, which you can see in the southeast corner of this map. So we expanded the project from 50 square kilometers to 940 square kilometers, really on this thesis that there was a large, sort of crustal scale fault in this region that was responsible for the formation of these deposits. And it seems we were correct. We've made a series of discoveries and had some amazing drill holes. And not to go through every single drill intersection here. This is only a small subset anyways of what we drilled since 2018. But every single one of these intersections sits outside that 2018 resource. So when we think about how much bigger it can get, we're thinking large quantums bigger. This was the 25th largest zinc project in the world as of 2018. We're hoping to get a lot bigger than that. I would highlight a couple of drill holes here. 12.3% zinc, 1.3% lead, and 46 grams silver over 124 meters was the best ever hole until this season. And this season we beat that with a drill hole that had 118 meters of 15% zinc, 2.8% lead, and 86 grams silver. And the amazing thing about that drill hole is that was one of the 2 intersections in that drill hole. There was a second intersection in that same drill hole of 80 meters of about 12% zinc. So in terms of greenfields exploration projects, that drill hole in terms of a grade width was the best zinc intersection in any project globally for probably 15 years in terms of greenfields projects. So this is a project just able to spit out these amazing intersections like no others. So these known zones, the Tom Jason boundary, end zone, truly, truly special in terms of what they've been delivering. We're expecting like I said, a massively different resource when we publish it next, which we're hoping is Q1 next year. It's subject to the vagaries and intricacies of resource estimation, which is not always predictable, but definitely delivered early next year. And beyond those 3 zones, this is a true district. District is a term that is abused in this industry. We all like to talk about district scale, land package, district scale this, district scale potential. Well, we have 4 deposits. We have signs of about 6 to 10 more. That is a district. These zones or these new targets can vary from conceptual to geophysical to geochemical to some combination thereof. But we think there's going to be a lot more here. We think we can prove up a 30-year mine life with our next study. And we think that there might be another 30 years here with a bit of exploration success. So a pretty unique project. When you're thinking about, hey, this could be one of the world's 10 largest zinc mines and could be that for 30 to maybe 40 or 50 or 60 years, you begin to understand why Teck has put so much money and why the Lundians put so much money in. And not to rest on our laurels, right next door was the Mactung project, which we acquired from the NWT government. Despite the fact it's largely in Yukon, it's a complicated thing to do with the bankruptcy of another company. But we paid $15 million for it, with that $10 million backdated. Tungsten, if you don't know, has 3 unique properties that make it critical. It is the hardest of metals. It is the highest melting point of metals, and it's about the 3rd densest, so it's being slightly denser than gold. So in certain applications where its exceptional strength and corrosion resistance play in, there are simply no substitutes. And it's at a unique nexus of the current sort of geopolitical tensions, because 85% of tungsten is mined in China. This is not 85% of tungsten is processed in China. It is mined in China. You've got the US government mandating that defense contractors do not source tungsten from China or Russia from 2026 onwards. Well, there's not a lot of Western sources, and there's no tungsten mines in North America. So this is dominantly used for machining, aerospace, drilling, mining, logging, and about 8% in defense as well, which is what's got the bee in the bonnet of the US. Our Mactung project, like I said, immediately adjacent to MacPass. We weren't, like as I said, we weren't looking to get into the tungsten industry. But a company, we develop our strategy. You put that strategy in motion, and then ultimately something happens and you adapt. I think strategy has to be emergent, and we saw an opportunity when the government was finally willing to sell Mactung independently of the old Cantung mine. We saw an opportunity to add a high-value project next door, so we did that. There was an old feasibility study, and it was taken all the way through the Yukon environmental assessment process with a positive recommendation to proceed. We now have good indications that we're going to be able to rely on that assessment. So we're looking to publish an updated PEA in the first half of next year, fast track a feasibility study, and possibly get into construction within 4 or 5 years here. And the significance of this is, when you think about a peer chart here, not many people get to point to a peer chart that looks so distorted like this. And in terms of resource size and grade, Mactung is like a freakish outlier, right? There's just nothing, let alone the Western world, there's nothing globally that has this unique combination of size and grade. It's in the enviable, perhaps slightly unfortunate position that you actually have to throttle production to avoid flooding the market. So, this has enough contained tungsten that we could produce everything that North America needs for 40 or 50 years. So it's a pretty great situation when the US is super anxious to solve the tungsten problem, that we are not a Band-Aid, we're kind of a one-stop shop for fixing that. So it's given us a tremendous leverage working with governments and looking to add more infrastructure, et cetera, for our projects as we push this forward. And lastly, our Gaina project. This is a total grassroots project. We acquired this by staking, actually. So Rio Tinto had done almost 30,000 meters of drilling on this project in the 70s. They were looking for a Mississippi Valley type zinc lead deposit, which they found. And their internal estimate was 30 to 50 million tons at about 4 to 5% zinc. But it's pretty remote and it's pretty mountainous, and that doesn't make the cut where this is. So they dropped it. Eagle Plains had it for a while. We picked it up, and the reason we picked it up was because there was a scientific paper published, and this was published by an academic out of Laurentian University, and as well the chief geologist of Ivanhoe, David Broughton. And they compared it, and they noted that there was only 2 places in the world you see neoproterozoic reefs like this. One place is Gaina River, the other place is Kipushi, which is Ivanhoe's super unique and high-grade, highest grade zinc mine in the world in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I think it's around 11 to 12 million tons at 34% zinc. They call it the Big Zinc. It's a truly unique project. And what is happening there is at the front of these reefs, you get some compression resistance during compaction, which leaves porosity. Later, mineralized fluids come through and create these reef front deposits, or created a reef front deposit at Kipushi. What Rio Tinto was drilling in this area, and they were drilling a pretty crude grid, was not looking at the reef front at all. So we came back, staked the ground, did some gravity, some soils, some pretty comprehensive mapping, and immediately, as you'll see in this cross section, we identified these really strong gravity anomalies right at the reef front, suggesting that one of these vertical reef front deposits may exist there. We have sky-high zinc and lead in soils around these. One soil sample ran 27% lead in soil, which is pretty bananas, right? So these are screamingly obvious targets, and one of the things that we recognize as Fireweed is that we want to continue our generative exploration as we also de-risk and look to build our other projects. So quite likely this will be on the drill plan for next year. So that is it. I'm here for another 2 hours. Well, I mean, I'm flying back tomorrow, but please chat to me tonight. Grab me over beers. I'm happy to answer more questions then and now. But please stick around. We got another few good talks. Our neighbors, Snowline, John McConnell from Victoria Gold, and the Premier of Yukon Ranch Play is going to talk. So I'll see if anyone has any questions.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I want to jump in with a quick question. Can you sort of just give us a couple of key goals for next year for both the zinc and for the tungsten projects?
Yeah, I think on the zinc project, we're still not looking to do much infill. On virtually 95% of our drill holes this year, which were all step out, there's entirely step out this year, hit. So we don't yet know the edges of the system. So we don't want to start putting a pin in it until we've really figured out what the extent of the edges are. Now, the known deposits, Tom, Jason, End Zone, and Boundary, they're going to be edges of those. They do not go to infinity, unfortunately. We're hoping. Well, we're not hoping we hit the edges, but we're looking to delineate those before we get too deep into planning around permitting. On the tungsten project, really less of a spend to be done there. It's more build the baseline, get the studies done, engage off-takers and governments, and just get to de-risking and planning.
And what are you thinking about size? I think it was an interesting comment you made about not wanting to flood the market. Potentially you could flood the market. You don't want to obviously kill your own market. So would you potentially look for a smaller size, more modest capex to?
Yeah, North American Tungsten, when they did the feasibility study in 2009, they had planned to take about 8% of the global tungsten market, which seems crazy, but they were intending to shut down the Cantung mine at the same time, which was about 5%. So they were only looking to capture about another 3% of the tungsten market. For us to come out of the gate and try to capture 8% of the tungsten market would likely be, corporate suicide, I think, because you'd spend a lot of money on a mine and you just wouldn't have the offtake for it. And it's it's tungsten is not a copper or lead or zinc where you produce a concentrate and you're almost certainly able to find a home for it. It's pretty offtake contract driven, right? So we want to really make sure we've engaged the industrial base and probably build it smaller than what was spec'd in 2009, at least to start.
Okay, we've got time for a very quick question if anybody has one. Over there.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is Mactung the tungsten skarn or was it Canton?
They're both skarns. Yeah, and that was, the North American tungsten team was planning to move their mill over, and just, I think maybe a little brash in their approach, but they just thought like, oh, we can mine Canton, we'll just do the same thing at Mactung, right? So we're doing a little bit more metallurgy than they did. We're not so sure they were right there, but they did, they got pretty good recovery at Canton, so they were good operators. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Brandon Macdonald, thank you very much.
Thank you.